Hollywood has portrayed the tombs of Egypt's mummies as having two things: riches beyond our wildest dreams and a nasty curse that befalls the treasure hunters. But as much as Hollywood would love to coin the idea, curses and mummies go way back. The Curse of Tutankhamun, a story of ancient priests standing guard in the afterlife, protecting the burial site of their pharaoh, preserving its purity and treasures. On November 4th, 1922, a team of archaeologists led by Howard Carter discovered the first step into King Tutankhamun's tomb. For over 3,000 years, the pharaoh lay at rest until November 26, 1922, when Carter and his team unearthed King Tut's tomb. It was believed by many that by disturbing the king's peace, a deadly curse was unleashed, bringing death and destruction upon those who dared disturb his eternal rest. Much like any folklore or urban legend, the curse of Tutankhamun was taken out of proportion, but the deaths that followed were all too coincidental. Howard Carter was a renowned researcher who spent much of his time in Egypt. Carter was employed by the Egypt Exploration Fund to assist in the excavation of the Middle Kingdom tombs at Beni Hassan, and later worked in the Temple of Hatshepsut. Carter was later appointed inspector of Lower Egypt, where he worked until a confrontation between Egyptian guards and French tourists led to his resignation. Nearly 10 years after Carter turned in his resignation, Lord Carnarvon was granted permission to dig in the Valley of the Kings. Years went by without many significant findings, and Lord Carnarvon was on the verge of giving up. It was Howard Carter that convinced him to try one more season, and before they knew it, Carter would stumble upon something great. On November 26, 1922, Carter made a slit into the doorway of King Tut's tomb, just wide enough for him to see through. Carnarvon, who had newly arrived in Egypt, was anxiously awaiting. Inside, hordes of gold and jewels surrounded a gold sarcophagus, a discovery that took the entire world by surprise. Quickly, rumors began to spread, warning the researchers of a curse that would surely destroy them. George Herbert, the 5th Earl of Carnarvon, was the man who financed the excavation of the king's tomb, and was, ironically, the first to succumb to the curse. A few short months after the opening of King Tut's tomb, Lord Carnarvon tore open a mosquito bite while shaving. The Earl met his end via blood poisoning. 6 weeks prior to his death, the press began globally reporting the mummy's curse, which was thought to afflict those associated with disturbing King Tut's rest. Legend following Lord Carnarvon's death says that the night he died, all of the lights in his home, or according to a few accounts, all of the lights in Cairo, went out. The next researcher to fall victim was Sir Bruce Ingham, though luckily Ingham didn't meet his true death, but instead had several close encounters with the Grim Reaper himself. Howard Carter, the archaeologist who discovered the tomb, gifted Ingham a paperweight. Though it was quite inappropriate, the paperweight consisted of a mummified hand wearing a bracelet. The bracelet is said to have been inscribed with the phrase, "Cursed be he who moves my body." Bruce Ingham narrowly escaped death not long after receiving the gift when his home burned to the ground. His home was reduced to nothing but ashes and embers. Ingham attempted to rebuild from the ground up, only for the home to be wiped away in a flood. George J. Gould was an American financier and railroad executive who traveled to the tomb of Tutankhamun in 1923. He fell sick nearly immediately afterward and wasn't able to recover. Gould died on May 16, 1923, of pneumonia. Aaron Ember, an American Egyptologist, was friends with several of the people who were present during the opening of King Tut's tomb, including Lord Carnarvon. In 1926, Ember died in his Baltimore home when it burned to the ground. He could have exited the home swiftly, but his wife encouraged him to retrieve a manuscript the researcher was working on while she attempted to save their son. The Ember family and their maid died that night. The name of the manuscript Ember died trying to save: the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Richard Bethel was Lord Carnarvon's secretary and the second person to enter the tomb of Tutankhamun. Bethel died in 1929 under suspicious circumstances, though many believe now that his death can be attributed to the work of occultist Aleister Crowley. Bethel was found inside his room at an elite gentleman's club in London, smothered to death. Prior to his death, a series of mysterious fires broke out at the Bethel home, where many priceless artifacts from King King Tut's tomb were stored. Hugh Evelyn White was a British archaeologist who visited the tomb and was believed to have had a hand in excavating the site. By 1924, nearly 24 of his colleagues had fallen to the mummy's curse and met their deaths. On September 9, 1924, Evelyn White died by his own hands, but not before writing a gruesome note. Quote, "I have succumbed to a curse which forces me to disappear." End quote. Allegedly, Evelyn White's last words were written in his own blood. And finally, Howard Carter, the first man to step foot inside King Tutankhamun's tomb in over 3,000 years. When questioned whether he believed in the curse of the mummy, Carter would laugh in the reporter's face. He believed there were no such things as curses. Howard Carter lived well into his 60s, but would eventually fall ill and die of lymphoma. His tombstone reads, "May your spirit live. May you spend millions of years, you who love thieves, sitting with your face to the north wind, your eyes beholding happiness." Those who deny the curse of Tutankhamun suggest that the pharaoh's curse was actually biological in nature, not supernatural. It's believed that sealed tombs have the potential to house pathogens that could still pose a deadly threat, even after thousands of years. Modern lab studies have shown some ancient mummies to be carriers of mold, including 2 particular strands that can cause congestion or bleeding in the lungs. Other scientists, however, argue that the likeliness of these substances killing a person 6 weeks later while also presenting exactly like blood poisoning isn't quite as believable either.